Hi, welcome. This is the Varsity Maine, Central Maine newspaper, Sun Journal basketball preview show for the upcoming tournament. Couldn't have said that more awkwardly if I tried. Anyway, I am joined today by Randy Whitehouse from the Sun Journal and Drew Bonifant from the Kennebec Journal and Morning Sentinel. I'm Travis Lazarzik. And guys, let's start with Double A. Randy, in Double A North, can anyone beat Portland? Two-time defending state champion.
Two-time defending state champion, four-time defending regional champion. Clearly the best team in the region during the regular season. Had the best player in the state in Teron Moss. Very well coached. Basically on the home floor or in the home city at least for the entire tournament. It's going to be tough. Edward Little and Oxford Hills, the 2 and 3 seeds, are playing about as well as they have all season, so they're in good position going in. I think certainly Wyndham and Bangor have to be considered possibilities as well, but Portland's no doubt the favorite. They, I think, have the best player, the best team, and having finally some fans in the seats to cheer them on this year will probably be a little extra advantage for them as well.
You've seen Edward Little and probably Oxford Hills quite a bit. What do either of those teams have matchup-wise that can do anything with Portland?
Well, I mean, both teams start out with preaching tough full-court defense, so that's a good start for them. Oxford Hills, people out there kind of saying woulda, coulda, shoulda if they still had Matt Fleming instead of up to Bangor. But they're still pretty formidable. Spencer Strong in the backcourt with Chris St. Pierre. Those guys are both capable of lighting it up, and Colton Carson has been an outstanding pivot man basically for them. Terrific athlete, coach, scoring the Maine on baseball scholarship, a pretty good basketball player too. Their biggest issue was their offensive consistency. They've improved on that. If they can keep it up, they'll be tough. Edward Little has Darby Shea, who's about as much of a microwave as there is in the tournament. He heats up. He's tough to stop. They have Wol My Wen, who's just a freak of nature on both ends of the floor with like a 6'10" wingspan. He's 6'4", can jump out of the gym. And they also have Ibn Khalid, who's a very good scorer, slashing type of wingman for them. So their problem has also been offensive consistency this year. They seem to be sorting that out a little bit here. They've won, I think it's 5 in a row. But if they're going to win it, it's going to be on their defense above all else.
And in Double A South, it looks like a two-team race between Scarborough and South Portland. They're the only two teams in the region with winning records, so you figure one of them is going to emerge.
Yeah, they've kind of been going back and forth all year between those two, and they've done okay against the Northern A teams. But for example, South Portland lost to Edward Little. Scarborough, I think, lost to Wyndham. So it seems like the North has been a little bit deeper than the South all year long.
Certainly. Let's move on to A. And A North, Drew, looks like it's once again Hamden is the favorite. Yep. And a bunch of teams like Nokomis, Skowhegan, and Coney kind of trying to catch the Broncos.
Yeah, kind of a similar situation as last year where there were some teams that were fighting for that middle high pack, and you had that one team last year was Madomic Valley that was undefeated and kind of setting the pace, and this year Hamden has been, they were expected to be, they were the number 1 preseason pick, they've been that pick all season long, but there are a couple teams behind that I think would have some pretty good confidence going into a matchup with them. But I mean, it's got to be Hamden who's the favorite going into this for sure.
Yeah, this is a very good Nokomis team, 12-6, coming off a loss to Hamden to end the regular season. I can't remember Nokomis being a number 2 seed in years, as long as I've been covering basketball in Maine anyway, and that goes back to 2000, 2001. Great backcourt there with Zach Hartsgrove, Josh Schmiestead, and Josh Perry. If you take maybe Nokomis' backcourt and combine it with Skowhegan's frontcourt with Cam Barnes and Marcus Christopher, you might have a team that could be a better matchup for Hamden. MPA frowns upon that kind of team building in the playoffs, so probably not going to happen. Talk, Drew, this Coney defense, this full pressure that they do, just gives teams fits.
They've been on a roll. They've won 8 straight games coming into this tournament, and they kind of changed up their approach. They started the season with that bombs away, full pressure, subbing 5 at a time, subbing every couple minutes, and they just weren't able to get a rhythm that way. They were trying to go from a bunch of people scoring 6, 7, 8 points rather than a few people scoring, in double digits. kind of go for that depth. It wasn't really working. Players weren't getting into a rhythm. TJ Maines, the head coach, switched it up, so now their better players are playing more minutes, playing together. Guys like Simon McCormick have come along. So guys like Ian Bowers have come along to join Jordan Roddy, and they've really just been on a roll. That defense still has stayed the same. Their offensive approach changed. The defense has been that same sort of pressure-based system, and it's really started to work. They get turnovers. They turn those turnovers into points. Roddy's really been on a hot streak lately. They've started to look like a dangerous team.
Yeah, and they did knock off Hamden in the quarterfinals last year, so let's not to pretend that Hamden's not invincible, because they have been beat. Anyone can get beat. Class A South has the defending state champion fellas in an 18-0 Greeley team. Can anyone challenge them?
I think it's got to be tough. I mean, you're talking about one of the best teams in the state all year long. In our poll, they've been 2 or 1 for pretty much a whole season. I really don't see anybody knocking them off. I think they can pretty much punch their ticket.
Yeah, Biddeford's a nice story. 15 wins, best team that they've had in a long time. But whether they're good enough to beat this Greeley team, we don't know.
Yeah, and they have teams like Ken Bunk in there that's also had a good season. It's one of those things where you're just in the wrong class. I mean, with the way Greeley's been playing both this year and the last couple of years, they've just ran into a juggernaut, really.
Yeah. One division where there really isn't a juggernaut is probably Class B South. Randy, no team with fewer than 5 losses in this. You're looking at number 1 seed with, I think, 6 losses.
Yeah, 12-6.
12-6.
Yeah.
Spruce Mountain, out of the MVC, is the number 4 team at 13-5. Can they make a run in this?
I think they can. They're an interesting team. They play a very fast-paced style of game that's kind of tailored for the bigger basketball courts down in Portland and so forth. Their court in J is one of those regulation-sized type of courts, and they like to run up and down the floor. Their problem's been consistency in knocking down shots. They have a lot of terrific shooters on their team, but they just haven't been able to get everybody kind of going at the same time, or even more than 1 or 2 kids going at the same time. But yeah, they're definitely a very dangerous team. Brett Fry, Mason Schenk, those guys get hot. They can put up a lot of points quickly. Another team I like out of that region to watch is Greater Gloucester. Have arguably the best guard in that region, John Martin. He's just a sophomore, but he's an outstanding player. They have good length. They have a good backcourt. Josiah Rotari, another excellent guard back there with Martin. They finally had some tournament experience last year, so they're not the young kind of newcomer that they were last year. They're a little more veteran, have a little more depth. I think they're the 5 seed. They face Spruce Mountain in the first round, so they'll have a tough road. But either one of those 2 teams, Spruce or Gray, could go far in that tournament.
Yeah. Drew, another team from our Central Maine area that's playing in that region is Maranacook at 13-5. How do you see their chances?
A lot better than last year, and it's funny, they were a 6 seed last year as well, but they were below 500, a tough year, just didn't have many playmakers. They changed their scheme to kind of what we were talking about with Coney, where it's fast, it's a version of that Grinnell system where it's just 3-pointers all throughout the game and pressure on defense, but they've been able to make it work. They're a team that could score 80 points, maybe even approach 90, and not have anybody in the high 20s. It really is a deep system. There are some players who kind of separate themselves. Salas Moeller has been turning on lately. Guys like Brian Riley, Jared Schmidt, even Cash McClure, the freshman, has had some big games. They're a lot more equipped to run with these better teams than they were last year. And just that ability to go off from downtown makes them a potentially dangerous matchup for really any team that they can go against.
Okay. Looking real briefly at B North, you have an undefeated Herman team at the top at 18-0 and hasn't really been tested all season, led by a kid who might be a Mr. Basketball semifinalist down the road in Keenan Marseille. Defending state champion Mount Desert Islands, number 2 seed. I think they have to be considered a factor. And then from the KVAC at 4 seed and number 5 seed Winslow, and then Oceanside should be a great matchup in the quarterfinals. They split regular season games. Just played each other in the KVAC championship game, though I'm sure neither tipped their hand about anything. Probably played as vanilla basketball, as you're going to see. And Winslow has won 12 games in a row since losing to Oceanside in early January. So that could be an interesting matchup there. Moving on to Class C South. Guys, this is a stacked bracket. I think you look at the top six teams in order: Halldale, Winthrop, Waynflete, Deargo, Richmond, Boothbay. I think any of those teams could have a legitimate shot to win this.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I saw Boothbay last week against Lisbon. Was very impressed with them. IJ's going to have his team playing its best in the tournament. Richmond's interesting because, number one, they have Zach Small, who's one of the outstanding players of the tournament.
Definitely.
But also, they played Mountain Valley Conference schedule this year. And their first couple of years in Class C, one of the things that they would always talk about, both boys and girls side, was the fact that they were playing East-West Conference, Class D essentially scheduled before that. This year they've been playing Class C teams, Class B teams, doing very well. See if that helps them in terms of their preparation heading into the tournament. Deargo, they're always, their own brand name almost. You almost associate the tournament with them. An interesting team is Waynflete. We really haven't seen them out of the Western Maine Conference, but every C South coach I talk to in the NVC brings them up almost without even me asking about them. And I have one coach tell me that he thinks that they're the favorite. Halldale would certainly argue with that. I've seen them a lot this year. They've been very impressive. Winthrop could certainly make a case coming off of winning it last year, 4 out of 5 new starters, but they hadn't really missed a beat. They get Jared McLaughlin back. He missed last 6 or 7 games with a concussion. He came back for their final regular season game. That's a big addition for them. I'm interested to see Halldale. They're probably the deepest team. You think that we've seen?
You've seen Halldale and Winthrop playing.
They remind me of Winthrop from last year, where they have a bunch of role players, but they also have the top end talent that could score, that could get high 20s, even approach 30. As a guy like Ashton Abbott can have games like Jake Hickey did last year for Winthrop. But then they also have guys like Owen DuPont, who's a real board crasher. Dow Neto is a point guard for them who is very comfortable, chipping in 7-8 points and a couple assists, but could also take over a game if need be. Jet Boyer and Alec Byron are really good shooters, really good scorers. They have a really good structure. It does feel a lot like Winthrop's team last year, but Winthrop's team didn't roll to this. They won the whole bracket. It wasn't easy. Madison gave them a test in that last game, so that structure with a team like Waynflete kind of waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
It's a tough road, but they're prepared to travel it for sure.
I had a bunch. I had one NBC coach describe Halldale to me as a bunch of stretch fours and Tyler Neto. That's what they are. It's these 6'1" kids. Jet Boyer is another one you can mention. Guys that are really athletic, can run and jump and shoot, and in the middle of it, like you said, is Tyler Neto, who's capable of helping those guys out or taking over a game himself. They're a tough team. That's
a good point. They play bigger than they are. They have some kids who are 6 foot 6'1", who will crash, who will throw the noses in there and get rebounds against bigger players. And that's something that Coach Chris Ransel has really stressed. He wanted the team to be tough. He knew they had talent at the start of the year. Wanted them to be tough, and it looks like they've stuck to that mentality.
Do we agree, guys, that whoever gets out of this tough bracket is going to probably face defending champ George Stevens Academy in the state game again?
I don't think there's any reason you could say no.
Yeah, George Stevens 17-1. I don't even know who beat him, but someone.
I think it was Lee Academy.
It was early in the season.
Yeah, it was the first or second game, and they've just been. And I remember talking because they played up here for that holiday tournament.
Right.
I talked to the coach. He said that it was almost a different team after that game. Like that kind of brought them back to earth, and now they're playing like George Stevens again. So. Yeah. Good luck to the C-South teams.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. All right, going to D-South. Talk about a team that struggled early. Greenville lost their first 2 games, and now they have since won 16 in a row to reclaim the number 1 seed, looking to get back to the state game. And then you have Valley, A.R. Gould, Forest Hills. Those top 4 would probably be the cream of this crop, I would think, Randy.
Forest Hills was one of the teams that beat Greenville.
Yeah, second game of the year.
Season. Yeah. I haven't seen them play, but they're always, Anthony Ammer always has a team primed and ready for the tournament. Greenville has pretty much everybody back from last year.
I think so, yeah.
So, I mean, they're the clear favorites. But, you know, the fun thing about Class D is you just never know. A lot of these teams either don't play each other or, you know, have one roster for the first time they play in a completely different roster for the tournament.
You do seem to have more crossover between these traditional powers from the East-West Conference with some of the other teams from Southern Maine. Like I know Valley and Forest Hills each played Seacoast Christian. Rangeley played A.R. Gould. So Temple's played these teams, Temple Academy and Waterville. So you get those games, and these coaches, they do scout within their conference. Someone like, you know, Anthony Amaral from Forest Hills will share info on a Seacoast Christian with a Curtis Miller at a Valley or something. So there's a lot of conference pride at stake when you get to this region. And I think in the north, we're looking at Woodland and Jonesport Beals.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, it's so much like B South, and that there's no clear-cut favorite, and it seems to be
that's what it looks. And looking at the heels, I haven't seen any of them play, but that's what it looks like. So,
Okay. All right, that's going to do it for our boys preview. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes to talk about the girls tournament. So please come back and stick around. Thank you.